ceiling, so I won't be using this microphone for the duration of this forum. So you should be able to speak and be heard and recorded. But if you do think you need the microphone to help you so everyone can hear, just let me know, or let our minute taker know, and we can get a mobile microphone to you. So I'm going to begin by inviting Councillor Anderson to read the Acknowledgement of Country. I'm honoured to be standing on Wajak Noongar country, on the banks of the Swan River. Nankalich Noongar Mort, Enkalich Nija Wajak Noongar Bujak, Nankalich Nija Noongar earlier, Bora Yaya, Bora, Valpenny, Wadich Noongar, Cardigan, Mort, where Buja Yaya. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and respect past, present, and emerging leaders, their continuing cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship with the land, which continues to be important today. Nang Yankala, Valpenny Noongar, Berta, Word, Mort, Buja Buja. I thank them for the contribution made to life in the town of Victoria Park and to this region.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Item 4 on the agenda is announcements from the presiding member. 4.1 is the purpose of the agenda briefing forum. The purpose of this forum is to provide an opportunity for elected members to ask questions and obtain additional information on officer reports in the draft ordinary council meeting agenda. It is not a decision-making forum, nor is it open for debate. Members of the public that may be directly affected by an item on the agenda can make presentations, deputations, statements and ask questions prior to the matter being formally considered by council at the next ordinary council meeting. 4.2, notice of recording and live streaming. All participation in tonight's forum will be audio recorded. It will not be visually recorded and it will not be live streamed on the town's website. The recording will be dealt with by the town's administration after the meeting, and any persons who wish to have access to that recording can contact the town's governance team who will assist. 4.3, conduct of the meeting. All those in attendance are expected to extend due courtesy and respect to the meeting by refraining from making any adverse or defamatory remarks regarding council, the town staff, or any elected member. No one shall create a disturbance at a meeting by interrupting or interfering with the proceedings through expressing approval or dissent, by conversing, or by any other means. All questions and statements made by members of the public are not to personalise any elected member or member of the town staff. Questions and statements are to be directed to myself as the presiding member. I may choose to call upon an officer of the town or another elected member to assist with responses. 4.4 is public participation time. There is an opportunity to ask questions and make statements at both the beginning and the end of this forum. The opportunity to ask questions and make statements at the end of the forum is limited to those members of the public who did not participate in the first public participation time, which commences early in the meeting. Public participation time will be held for a maximum of 30 minutes. Any additional time must be by agreement from the elected members at the meeting, and it will be done in 5-minute increments. As per the usual practice, there's a limit of 3 questions per person, 2 minutes for statements. If there are very few people in the public gallery, we can be more generous and relaxed with those rules. Finally, 4.5, questions taken on notice. Responses to questions taken on notice that relate to the agenda items will be presented in the officer's report for the ordinary council meeting agenda under the heading further consideration when the ordinary council meeting agenda issues. Now move to item 5 on the agenda, which is attendance. We have all elected members in attendance. There are a number of members of the executive and management of the town of Victoria Park, led by the CEO, Ms. Askew. We have no apologies and no one on approved leave of absence. Item 6 is declarations of interest. Mr. CEO, do we have any declarations of interest, please?
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. Yes, we do. Item 13.4, yourself, an impartiality interest. I have been the patron of the Victoria Park Carlisle Bowling Club and have attended meetings with the club's committee to discuss their request for a lease renewal. Also, item 13.4, Councillor Crozer, impartiality interest. I have met with a member of the club to discuss this issue. And item 13.5, Councillor Crozer, impartiality. I have several friends who live on this street and I have discussed this item with them.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Are there any other elected members who have interests that they need to declare who haven't already done so? No? All right. Well, just a reminder that if you do think that you have got an interest in any of these items, you'll need to let me know. Item 7 is public participation time, which will now commence at 6:36 p.m. We've got one person who has indicated they would like to participate in relation to item 13.5. So I'll invite Mark King to please come forward and take the hot seat, because that's what it looks like, isn't it, down there? Or it looks like we didn't allow dinner for you on the spare table. But welcome, Mr. King.
Thank you. First time holding a mic. My first question is about, on the Hampshire Street, is about the warrant assessment scope that was done. Clause 16 states that the Hampshire Street scored below 50 on its warrant assessment score. I was hoping it would be possible that we can know what the actual score was, what the methodology was used, and can the completed assessment be made available, including the score for each criterion, just for a bit of transparency to know the process and how that's done.
So I'm going to give that to the Chief Operations Officer, Ms. Levikas.
The warrant assessment is a standard assessment that's done across all governments and with main roads. I haven't got the actual score to hand, but absolutely we can that score and what that looks like.
So what I'll do is I'll take that on notice, so that will ensure it goes in the agenda for the ordinary council meeting. In that particular report, you'll go to the end of the report and there'll be the words further consideration, and that's where the information you will find will be published there ahead of the ordinary council meeting. So hopefully that will be of assistance to you. Do you have another question? Yep.
The second question is about the evidence base. The report relies on a traffic survey approximately 12 months old and only 2 days weekday parking occupancy surveys. Could the administration explain why it considers this evidence sufficiently representative to support its recommendations, particularly given residents' concerns about weekend conditions? And can the council release the details of the surveys for resident review?
So I refer that to Ms. Levikas.
Yes, so I guess the response to your observations around just a couple of days, we don't consider that to be sufficient for decision making right now. I guess when you do the local area traffic management process, you basically take a bit of a snapshot to help contextualise the concerns. From there, there's a more formalised data collection process and analysis that is actually fed into a consultation process that helps us land on a solution for what would work in that setting, and we assess and identify the options from there. So I guess the next step for us is that next week we'll be going to market to get a traffic assessment company to work with us, who will do video surveys and counts and actually do it over a period of time, so it's better informed solutions.
So, Mr. King, you had asked if the community survey the survey that's now 12 months old the details could be released of that. Is that something you're still wanting in light of the Chief Operations Officer's answer that work is now going to be done going forward to basically get community consultation around what the community would like to see, at the same time the administration will be doing its technical work for an up-to-date and more detailed traffic evaluation assessment?
Yeah, I think now that I understand that there's going to be a more up-to-date survey, I'm happy to withdraw that request. We can wait on the more recent data.
All right, that would be fine. And you've got another question?
Yes, the third one is about the one-way traffic conclusion. The report concludes that converting Hampshire to one-way traffic could potentially increase vehicle speeds by removing the need for opposing vehicles to give way. Noting that neighbouring Westminster Street is wide enough to accommodate two-way traffic without having to give way, does the average traffic speeds along this road reflect a market increase over that experienced on Hampshire? I'll probably preface that if that's going to be part of the review, I'm fine to wait for that deferment.
All right, go to Ms. Levikas again.
So in terms of the information presented at point 10, that is very much around, so there is a balanced argument for against. And certainly we'll be looking as part of that data, as we build up that fact base from more recent data, we'll actually be doing optioneering around that and actually having a look at it from a nodal point of view, not just a single street. We don't want to put something on Hampshire that displaces or something on Balmoral that displaces, and we need to make it work.
That's it. That's the three.
Anything further? Because clearly we're really packed in the public gallery there, but more than happy if you've got some other questions that you wanted to ask, because we have time allocated, or if you wanted to make a statement to us, you're welcome.
Yeah, I could probably go ahead and go statement, and I'll probably shorten it now that I know, because I did have had a lot of comment on the report, but understanding that it's a preliminary report, I think it's probably better. I can probably just email this over and maybe have that taken into consideration, but I do appreciate the prompt look and tabling.
If you do wish to send something through to us, by all means, and so the governance team's address is on the website, but I think you might have been in contact with them already with regards to ahead of tonight pre-registration. So that email address from those who are in contact with you from the town's governance team, if you'd like to send something through to them, you're more than welcome to. They'll distribute your statement to elect members.
Okay, thanks.
All right, but there's also that opportunity to come to the ordinary council meeting in 2 weeks' time, where we will be debating these matters, to come and hear the debate, and you again get a chance to ask questions and make statements before that too.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Do you want to do your statement now?
Okay. I will go ahead because I know some of the residents were waiting for me to speak, so I'll briefly kind of go through them just to make sure that some of their thoughts are built as well.
Absolutely.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the administration for the work undertaken in preparing this report. I'd also like to thank council for recognizing the concerns raised by the residents through the petition process. Rather than repeat the detail of the 3 questions I submitted, I'd simply explain why I believe that they're important. And it basically surrounds around whether there's enough data. And now, knowing there will be more data, I think that'll put some people's minds at rest. A couple of comments I'd like to make in contribution to the discussion this evening. Clause 7 has mentioned that the traffic survey is over 12 months old. And most of the stuff has been before the immediate opening of some of the restaurants around the area, which has probably contributed to increased volume. I believe a new survey will show an increased volume in traffic, particularly from Friday to Sunday, which is most of the residents' main concern with the congestion and the issues. The 2 parking surveys were performed both on weekdays. Despite this, one recorded more than 100% occupancy with 2 cars parked illegally. I suggest that 100% occupancy is common at peak periods and hope that the LATM assessment has taken this into account. Anecdotally, traffic conditions less severe in the winter months. Make this point because all surveys are outside of peak cafe patronage months of November to March, when traffic is even higher. I believe the conditions during these 5 months a year should be taken into account in any assessment for treatment. Clause 14, the 2025 survey reports an 85% speed of 35 kilometers an hour. In the investigation warranted, this is generally low. While the speed may be acceptable for normal width and level road, I put before the council to drive on this street when parking is full and judge for yourself whether 38 kilometers an hour is a safe speed given the slope and narrowness and limited views by drivers pulling out. Clause 14, the investigation reports that the narrowness and congestion itself acts as a form of speed abatement and traffic control. Many residents will counter that this congestion is a cause of many of the damage and frustration experienced. To use an unsafe condition as a preventative measure for another unsafe condition is questionable. As inferred by my question, I also question whether a conversion of a road to one-way will make speeding more common and therefore less safe than what the residents are experiencing now. Clause 15 of the briefing notes that while there is significant mid-block crashes, the severity of accidents are of lower severity and property damage only in nature. I would like to remind the council the importance of considering leading indicators of unsafe situations as worthy of treating. The alternative is waiting for lagging indicators, such as serious injury, as a justification for change is not in keeping with safety best practice. Clause 14, The investigations compare wider Westminster and Balmoral streets to the more narrow Willis and Hampshire streets, with Westminster being some 1.6 meters wider. It then proceeds to infer that the volume is less and therefore not an issue. These comparisons give the impression that Willis and Hampshire's traffic volumes are acceptable without taking into account their relative narrowness and unique characteristics. Clause 16, the report states the warrant assessment score identified minor physical treatment with more broadly inference to selected removal of parking. Assuming the warrant assessment takes into account all characteristics of the street, and given the known peak traffic volume, my uninformed opinion is there will be a need to be more than a few parking spots removed to provide adequate giveaway. The number likely needed will force residents and their family and friends onto other roads. This will only exacerbate parking problems in the future, so it's not seen as a preferred option for many in the street. As new high-rise developments are approved along Albany Highway and East Victoria Park, parking demand will only continue. Many of us on the street believe the unsafe traffic conditions cannot solely be put to a single cause, such as speeding or narrowness or slope traffic volume. We believe it's a combination of these things interacting together. Given this, we're hopeful the full investigation will assess the impact of these interactions to appreciate the situation and recommend a solution that is appropriate. I appreciate this as an initial investigation. I welcome the recommendation for community consultation. My hope is simply that the consultation proceeds with the benefit of the most complete transparent, so that both council and the community can have confidence in whatever decision you ultimately reach. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. King. We appreciate your time and you coming along tonight. So again, if you want to send something through, please do so. It'll be helpful. Thank you. All right. There being no other members of the public in the gallery, I'll close public participation time at 6:48 p.m. Item 8 is presentations, of which there are none. Item 9 is deputations, of which there are none. Item 10 is method of dealing with agenda business. So as per our usual practice, I'll identify the items in the agenda for which we've received notification of some questions, noting that answers have been provided to all those pre-submitted questions, and elected members may decide that they don't need to follow up on the questions they've already submitted. So at the moment, there have only been questions sent through in relation to item 11.1, the council resolution status report for July 2026, item 13.3, 10 Kent Street, East Victoria Park, evaluation of the expression of interest submissions, and item 13.5, petition response regarding road safety concerns at Hampton Street in East Victoria Park. So on that basis, are there any items in the agenda that elected members do want to have included questions that are not in those three? Yep, Deputy Mayor Miles. 13.1. All right, so that's the performance review for the on-demand Verge collection. Anybody else? And is there anyone who has asked their questions about 11.1, 13.3 and 13.5 who no longer wish to ask questions tonight about those items? Cruiser?
I'm no longer getting asked about 11.1.
Okay. Is there any other elected member who still wants to ask questions about 11.1? No? Okay, so that one's coming off the list. Final call, any other items to be added? No? All right, so we've got 3 items. We're going to start with item 13.1, which is the performance review for the on-demand Verge collection service. So I'm going to go to you, Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, so I had a question about the non-conforming. You said there was 12% non-conforming, and I don't think it is in the report, but I was just curious if there was any commentary around, yes, if that adds extra costs, or whether it was just an observational thing, or like, I guess, yeah, what that meant, aside from they put the wrong things, but yeah, what it meant in terms of delivery or cost or anything like that.
Go back to the Chief Operations Officer.
So in terms of the non outcomes. So when there is nothing presented, yes, we'll be charged for that call. When the collection exceeds the limit, they collect up to the limit, but the stuff that is outside of the limits that necessitates an alternate way for those items to be disposed. So it could be that there's a second call. It could be that the residents get rid of those things themselves. And that's similarly with the items structured on Verge. So again, that there'll be a call to go and pick it up. They're unable to pick it up, and therefore that call will be charged for. So it's a bit of a mix as to the implications for each of those. I guess the items that are obstructed, when we became aware that being an issue in the earlier part, that's when we gave the opportunity for residents to give us a call, and we put out a couple of cones to I guess preserve that space to allow that collection.
So yes, I guess so in terms of cost from our perspective, the biggest problem is when people book something and then just don't present. That's the main thing. And do we think that's something we can just tackle with, I guess, better communications and that sort of thing, just to make it more, I guess, efficient? Whatever is the biggest.
Yes, look, I think when I had a look at the data to pull this report together, it was very much a look in the rearview mirror. I think there's opportunity for us to improve in order to make some decisions around things. So I think we can be a lot more proactive and use the opportunities to educate a bit further and actually start to reduce those non-conformances.
And we think, just last question, sorry, but would we need to get to a point where we like banned people from virtualizations, or you don't think that kind of an issue? It's more just like steady reminders in place to pick things up.
I certainly think we need to monitor it, and we need to see whether or not there's people who genuinely didn't know, or if there were people that were confused, and we can sort of run a bit more education. But if there's people that are doing it consistently, then I think we need to look at having stronger conversations around it. I guess at the same time, they're using up their allocation, respected whether they present or not. So it becomes a bit of an issue.
Any other questions about this item? Councillor Ingram.
So just to make sure, the non-conformance reasons and the data points that have been collected and put in part of this report, does that come directly from us? Was that from Verge Valet?
That's from Verge Valet.
Have we validated that the cancellation numbers are not incorporated and included with the nothing presented?
We haven't at this point, and but as we do a more fulsome review, we'll be ready to that.
Okay, that's good. Is there any way? I mean, is there an expected amount of circumstances where people may place things out and then your magpies might swing past and pick them up, and then of course there is a non-presentation? Is there any way that we can sort of account for what sort of expected variance there might be with a program like this, or is that just something that we don't have?
Anybody else with questions about this item? I've got a couple. So as between paragraph 11 and paragraph 12. So paragraph 11 says that the end of June 2026, 3,424 eligible households use the service. And then there's a breakdown within that, including some swapping and some cancellations. Then when you go to paragraph 12, it says of the 4,838 booked services, does that 4383 includes the 246 cancellations and the 260 swapping between?
Yes.
And modules. And right, okay. So looking at that, Were the administration expecting to see figures of approximately 24% utilisation of this service, given that it's getting close to 12 months since we started it in August last year?
So I guess we did go into that year. So one of the things for me that was very telling was actually at point 15. And I guess what point 15, the bar chart at point 15 looks at the bookings against our capacity. So currently we don't have an unlimited capacity available to our residents. It's such that, you know, the way that this service is structured, Verge Valet has made available one hard waste truck and one green waste truck. And basically when those bookings are full, they're full. So looking at that, more often than not, we're actually limited by the capacity of collections more than demand from our residents. On those occasions where there's higher numbers above that red line on the weekly total collections booked, that was on days, that was following years where we'd observed long wait times and we'd asked for an additional truck to be filmed.
Okay, thank you. So just trying to dive a bit deeper, with the 246 cancellations, do we get any data from Verge Valet about how long people were registering a cancellation prior to the book date of service? So were the cancellations all coming within 24 hours of the book service date, or were people booking them like 8 weeks in advance and then cancelling them at the 4-week mark because something came up, that sort of thing? Like any patterns that might be available from that data about why cancellations are happening?
We haven't got that level of data just yet, but we certainly can get that level of data from Verge Valet.
Okay, so with the 246 cancellations and looking at your next data in 12 about nothing got presented, and that has 336. So I'm interested to know if there's any correlation between the cancellations and nothing presented. So if people cancelled at the last minute and then the contractor showed up without knowing it had been cancelled and saw nothing presented, is that a nothing presented? I'm trying to work out why people would book this service and then not put anything out. There might be some explanations for that, but I don't know. And the final question that I had is, whilst there's quantitative data in here, has Verge Valet been running a "Did we serve you well" survey so that when you book the service, you can go back in and say, this was really great, I rank you 5 out of 5 or 1 out of 5, and have they shared that qualitative data with the town?
There is a rating service.
Yep.
And you know, there were a lot of 5-star ratings. At the time we pulled this report together, there seemed to be a bit of conflicting data in that, in terms of the number of ratings versus the satisfaction reports, and we were trying to dig a little bit deeper with Verge Valet to actually untangle that. The other thing that we would like to do is, as we start to look at the efficacy of this program and its role in our waste management more broadly, is to actually do our own surveys as well. Okay, so I suppose then the final question is, in the lead up to this matter coming back to council for us to have a look at, particularly considering what steps might need to be potentially over and above what's recommended, is it likely between now and the ordinary council meeting that you might be able to share, if we take the question on notice, about the extent of the customer satisfaction information that is currently available to the town through Verge Valet? That would be great. So if we could take that on notice, that the town makes available the Verge Valet customer satisfaction information, so we can get a feel for how people are valuing the service. That would be great. Thank you. Any other questions about this item? No? All right. So we'll then move on to the next one on the list, which is item 13.3. That's 10 Kent Street, East Victoria Park, evaluation of the EII submissions.
Now, we've had some questions in relation to this, but what I will say is because the attachments are confidential, if it is necessary for us to speak to the confidential attachments for your questions, what I'm going to make sure is that we procedurally explain that for the audio recording so that then the staff can change the audio recording so it will become an audio recording of a confidential session and it won't be part of what's released at any stage later in the future unless required. So, Councillor Cruiser, I know I have you down on the Mayor's run sheet that you've got some questions about this item. Do you need to dig into the detail of what's in the confidential attachment? No? All right. Anyone else who's got questions on this item that they're thinking they might be wanting to ask about those confidential attachments? If there aren't at the moment, I will ask you again when I've heard Councillor Cruz's questions because something might come up that spurs some action on your part. So if it does, I just want you to be alert not to say your question too quickly before we work out we need to be in a marked closed session. Councillor Cruz.
Thank you. In the public evaluation of the EOI process, there's a note that applicant 1 will be providing fully supported student internship opportunities. Was there any clarification on whether fully supported meant that the students would be paid for those internships?
So I might go to our Manager of Property Development and Leasing, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. There wasn't details as to whether or not the roles would be financially supported beyond the provision of the services of the applicant. So I suppose expanding on that a little bit further, it didn't identify that the people in the internships would be paid. It was more that there would be an internship provided via their services that the organisation gives.
Cruiser?
As part of the evaluation of the business, was there any information on whether they were already managing internships or whether this would be something new that they were providing as part of taking on the space?
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. The submission by the applicant says that they were already providing internship opportunities, and that is part of the rationale behind wanting to occupy the property at 10 Kent Street is to further expand their business so they have some more space for the internship opportunities.
Thank you. That's all for me.
Any other questions about this item? No? Oh, Councillor Ingram. Yep.
I may have to refer to the attachments.
All right. So fair enough. So for the purposes of having our minute taker officially record this, so at 7:04 p.m, I'm going to propose that the meeting now proceed to a confidential session of the forum on the basis that discussion will proceed in relation to the confidential attachments in accordance with section 5.23 subsection 4 of the Local Government Act as the business to be considered relates to the following tender information disclosing proprietary technology or trade processes that are not public and would likely affect the tenderer's business interests, and section 5.23 subsection 3 of the Local Government Act as the business to be considered must be dealt with confidentially to comply with another written law that prohibits or restricts the making public of information. So on that basis, it's now 7:05 p.m. and so we'll note that the recording now moves to a confidential session other questions, especially none that involve the confidential attachments, that we will now at 7:51 p.m. End the confidential discussion in relation to item 13.3. And thereafter, as we proceed forward, the rest of our discussion is not covered by confidentiality. And that brings us to backwards 13.5, which is petition response regarding road safety concerns for Hampshire Street, East Victoria Park. And in relation to this, Councillor Minson, you'd indicated you had a question to ask about this. Do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. I'll just ask my question I sent the notice in because I just have a couple of follow-ups to that question. So the question was about parking ranger attendance to Hampshire Street, and I was asked general commentary on the frequency and timing of ranger visits and how it compares to other, on average, I guess, other typical non-problematic areas of the town.
So, Ms. Lebickas.
So the parking officers go to that vicinity daily at varying times between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so far in 2026, there have been 18 reports and attendances due to resident concerns, and that is primarily around parking in driveways and people being parked in. In terms of how it compares to other areas, I just say that other streets wouldn't necessarily get daily patrols.
Yeah, just to just clarify, so when we say that there's a daily visit, is it more about the, like, I think the answer was any kind of streets up from the commercial district of Albany Highway. We say daily more in terms of that East Vic Park hotspot area, or we daily on, we say there's daily inspections at least on a street off Albany Highway. Well, I would say there's daily in that area specifically.
Ms. Lebickas or Mr. Old.
Thank you, ma'am. Take that on notice. Operation of these changes each and every day. I've been on patrol with the rangers, and sometimes it's illegal parking outside a panel, and that takes precedent on the day. As per general trends, I'll take it on notice with further considerations.
Thank you. We'll have to take that on notice. Anything further, Councillor Minson?
Yes.
Any other questions in relation to this item? I've just got a quick question. Noting that petition requested was one to take a formal local area traffic management review of Hampshire Street, and noting that that's not part of the officer recommendation, that council requests that to be done. It instead requests council to do a community consultation. Is that on the basis that the town is simply going to do the local area traffic management review of Hampshire Street anyway, and assess the different things that have been asked for? Or is it the case that the town doesn't, how do I say this, doesn't have a view that that is necessary? It's just more to the point of consulting with the community, notwithstanding that the petition is a formal consultation where they've told us in effect what they'd like us to do. Like, you know, assess the current traffic environment, find some solutions and tell them about those solutions, like pros and cons. Vickers?
In effect, the consultation and the additional data collection is the first part of doing a local traffic management plan. I guess there are concerns, we were getting similar concerns from the residents in Carlisle Street as well. And we do believe that we need to get some consolidated data so that we can understand whether or not we will, by addressing changing parking, changing geometry of the street things. So constantly the data sort of leads to whether or not that will affect. So I guess from my point of view, I believe that we will deliver the local area traffic management review. It's just that what we're sort of noting in this paper is the first steps for us to be able to do that so that we can come back and to council to look at budget, to look at priority, to look at volume.
Okay, and so my final question is the work that was done a couple of years ago, which I think Mr. Old will be familiar with, where we had requests for changes to be made to parking conditions on a number of those streets. Willis Street, I think, I thought Hampshire was one of them. And we ended up doing a trial where we changed the parking arrangements on at least one or two of those streets. To see what impact it had, and that was a 12-month trial, and that came as a result of the administration proposing one thing and then elected members proposing an alternate, which was then adopted, and then the trial ran and then data was collected, and at the end of that we did a survey, and there ended up being a recommendation for no permanent change to be made to like the parking and stuff like that. Are we able to use any of the data that we collected around that time in relation to this, or it's not thought to be relevant? Mr. Old, so I'll take it on notice one.
So I do recall we talked about the actual ins and outs. Take it on notice and see what your needs for whoever's doing the data review. Yeah.
I know we do have some reports that came to council previously, I think probably going back now maybe about 2 years ago, and I know Mr. Pryor led that program to review all of that.
Yeah.
So some of it was changing, like the parking restrictions and the side of the road and the other side of the road and things like that. But it looks like their concerns are both across speed as well as parking. So, all right, well, perhaps if we can take that on notice then, if we can make any use of previous data.
So certainly from my view, and we do, as part of characterising the viability of some of the solutions that we need to take into account with what we're seeing today.
Okay, thank you. I will actually ask a question to Mr. Doy regarding the petition request that the town consider some traffic management options, including a potential one-way traffic arrangement, or so that would be they call restriction on turning movements, but I think a one-way traffic means that only be one way to come in, and I'm assuming it wouldn't be, they'd be contemplating it wouldn't be at the Albany Highway end. Does that potentially open the door to like a safe, active street opportunity going forward? Would the end result of this investigation be that their street gets put forward for something like that in the future? Mr. Doy?
There are all sorts of possibilities, but there's a lot of work that has to be done to understand the context within which this street sits within. Yeah. Is it connecting destination to destination? What's happening on the street? Capacity to be able to service an outcome for that street in consideration of other things that we're doing. Engagement outcomes, all sorts of considerations, but all things are possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Just bouncing off what Mr. Doyle said there about all things being possible. It seems like this is a area-wide problem, and this is something that other neighbourhoods also experience, where the impact of through traffic is creating a lot of safety issues. some parts of the world create low traffic neighborhoods using modal filters. Is that actually a possible outcome for areas like this where we have quite a few streets experiencing traffic pressures and parking pressures? Or is that not really on the table?
We haven't done the work yet, so I don't know what's on the table at the moment, but if I take a higher view, you're quite right. As cities mature, it always starts generally with the CBD, and then the inner city population and density increases, then congestion is inevitable, and these pressures that the community are facing are an inevitable part of the maturing city. And so this is not unique to the town or to Perth. Like, these are the things that happen, and so approaches like the one that you just mentioned are perfectly reasonable to consider. Yeah.
Any other questions about this item? No, in that case, that's us come to the last of the matters that are on the agenda for us to ask questions about. Item 15, committee reports, there aren't any. Item 16, motion of which previous notice has been given, there is none. Item 17, public participation, which I open at 8:03 p.m. and close at 8:03 p.m. there being no members of the public still in the gallery. Item 18, questions from members without notice on general matters. Anyone? Deputy Mayor Miles.
I was just wondering if there was any updates with the Carlisle crossing
Is it this? So the video survey has concluded.
Yep.
It's sitting in main roads at the moment to work through at their insights and what are the next logical steps. So we reached out again to main roads today to see where they're at with the processing of the data and that sort of stuff. Main roads had asked us not to put any interim measures in place until the video survey was concluded, so that we didn't interfere with what's normal operating procedure out there. So we've got some temporary measures out there now, and keep talking with main roads and PTA to reach that conclusion.
That was signs that you mentioned us. Okay, so now you're intending to do it.
Anything else? I have a question because someone had reached out to me to say, what is happening with the dead trees at Long Park and who's responsible for replacing them? Because some people have made inquiries at Metronet who said, no, it's all the town's responsibility. So that was helpful. They actually showed me what had been sent to them, which said this is the town of Victoria Park's responsibility.
So the agreement with the Alliance, agreement with PTA is that there's a 100% survival rate in the first couple of years. So it is absolutely the responsibility of the Alliance to replace it.
All right, so then my follow-up question is, given that we know that there are dead trees sitting in there in the landscaping, is this on the basis that we don't take any active steps because they're contractually responsible to look at it, assess it, remove them, replace them? Or can we form a facilitator role where we're pressing them to get it done? Because the window for them to do plantings is really closing rapidly. We're almost at the end of the real winter, it appears. And given the landscaping they've already done out there, much of that was probably not quite done at the right time of the year to ensure success. So, yeah, where do we sit in the scheme of this thing, trying to get these trees replaced for the benefit of our community?
So today, Institute hasn't been
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions from elected members general without notice? Councillor Ingram and then Councillor Midson.
Yeah, I was just curious if there's any information that's come forth regarding the announcement of the precinct station structure that's going forward from the state government. Is there any idea as to how the town and what sort of all the town's going to have and having input in those decisions as that carries forward? Or is that a bit early to say?
Mr. Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Thanks for the question, Councillor Ingram. That's a corker of a question because unfortunately the improvement, so that piece of work is separated into two. This is plain to speak, but bear with me. There's the train station precinct improvement plan, which defined the role of that piece of work is to define the boundaries of the development provisions the state will provide and ultimately be responsible for administering. Now that there was a commitment, there was the understanding that there would be a level of engagement between the state and local government for that piece of work. That didn't occur, and that was announced, I think, a week ago. And so my expectation is that that will be the same for the improvement scheme. That's the approach that's officially the approach that the state government will take with the improvement scheme.
Thank you. Councillor Minson, you have a question?
Oh, that's
No. All good? All right. Anyone else have any questions about notice? No? All right. Thank you. So item 19 is confidential matters. We don't have any. So that brings us to the end of the briefing forum at 8:08, and I'm going to depart with usual tradition by saying thanks everyone, because even though this is not an ordinary council meeting, this is, however, the last council affair that our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Old, will be attending, he having tendered his resignation to leave us to go on to other new and exciting ventures. So I want to take this opportunity formally on the record to thank him for his contributions to the town. This has just come on 4 years since Mr. Old joined us in the hot seat as Mr. Money, as I like to call him. And as I recall, he followed a tradition of his predecessor in the role of joining us just around about the time we'd adopted the budget, which I always think is a hard gig to be a chief financial officer who comes on board having had no role to play in the development of the budget, but is told, here you go, the budget is either just adopted or about to be adopted. But I do want to reflect on the fact that Mr. Old came into a financial services team that I think had been through a fair bit of upheaval. There was a need to rebuild that team and to bring that team cohesively together. It's no secret that the town also had at that stage some ongoing issues with regards to its audit findings that needed to be dealt with. There were issues with regards to the presentation of our financial statements, and Mr. Old worked very hard to bring those things to, I think, a better resolution than we'd had. And it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in the first year. It certainly meant that we went on to have some difficult audits. Well, while we got our unqualified audit opinions, there was a lot of work that had to be done to really improve the quality of the financial information that we were recording and presenting outwardly for our auditors and the OAG to look at. And in the meantime, of course, the Chief Financial Officer's portfolio includes our Rangers team and our parking team. And so he was there for the introduction of our paperless, cashless parking machines. And paid parking in the town has always been a joyous topic for our community and for councils over many, many years. But from the time paid parking was introduced, it was something that cost a lot of money. We borrowed a lot of money to do it in the mid-2010. And so Mr. Olds oversaw the removal of our old parking machines and our movement effectively to dynamic parking models with new parking infrastructure. And so that was a significant change. And I think it's also fair to say that the Rangers team has been one that has really benefited, I think, from having sort of cohesive leadership. And so we're very fortunate that you were able to build a team that started to have real impact on the town. And for that, on behalf of council and the community, we're incredibly grateful for all your efforts. But just from those of us on council, we have a very small token of our appreciation.
back copies of the budget. You shouldn't have.
Well, you know, you say that laughingly, and I was tempted to give you, like a formal bound version of budget, but no. But that's a small token of appreciation, from, all of the elected members, who are here. So we really appreciate it. We hope that your new endeavours and next venture will be exciting for you and everything that you hope for.
All right, thank you very much.
Welcome to say something if you
On
like.
the microphone, I'm going to sing. No, it's not about me. It is about my team. I do reflect, when I started here, I had acting manager, happens to be Grace. I went with her in the first month. Correct me if I'm wrong, David, because you're putting in the facts as well. Trent was acting, so I had to appoint him in the first month. I had no PA. I recruited Nat in 3 months. That's the best person I've ever recruited in my probably 50 people I've hired. So we did expand the budget team when Nana came on, and we expanded that to be able to do budgets and reports better. So yeah, I may be the leader, but it's always the team that contributes. So thank you very much. Also personally, you know, that time we did move up from Melbourne with my family. We had to deal with elderly parents down there. My wife's father and mother. So there's always work from home was actually very well received. I tried to keep in touch as best as I can, best as I could. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Round of applause. Thank you so much, and we're adjourned. So, or we're finished.
Yeah.